Assalamu alaikum or Hushamdeed. Hello everyone, and welcome to a special session this afternoon on the Embassy's Facebook Live. My name is Elizabeth, and I'm part of the grants management team here at the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad. Are you an organization looking for funding to implement your impactful programs here in Pakistan? Do you know all the steps it takes to register to be eligible for a U.S. Embassy grant? We're going to be talking about all those things today, about grants and applying for grants. As you may have noticed, we've recently posted several funding opportunities on Grants.gov, and we hope that today's session will address any questions you have regarding this process. Thank you all for your questions to those of you who have already submitted. If you haven't already asked your question, please send it now in our comments below, and we hope to answer as many as we can in the next hour. I'm happy to have with me today my counterpart in grants to discuss this topic and to help me answer all of your questions. It's my honor to introduce to you all Francis. Francis?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Francis, and I also work with the grants team in the U.S. Embassy Islamabad. Happy to be here, meet you all, and answer your questions.
Wonderful. So let's get started. First, can you tell us a little bit about the grants process overall?
Yes. So usually every year, the Public Affairs section in U.S. Embassy Islamabad puts out a call for grantees to apply for grants that are advertising on Grants.gov. This call for application is called Notice of Funding Opportunity, or what we call as NOFO. Each NOFO is posted to the public on the Grants.gov website for around 2 months in hopes to find a partner organization that will help us in the implementation of the grant idea. We have a variety of topics the grants cover, such as youth and cultural exchange programs, English learning programs, journalism training, you name it. The NOFO application is extensive and long, so it's best to read the entire NOFO thoroughly and begin as soon as possible. The application itself, additional support documentation, and several registration on different databases are all required component to the grant application process. After the NOFO application is due, the U.S. Embassy staff will collect the applications and through very competitive screening, choose the best qualified organization. After that, the partnership has formed and the work of collaboration and implementing the program's idea are then in full swing.
Excellent. That's super helpful. Thanks, Francis. I'm glad you mentioned registration. So our viewers just watched a short video describing the steps we have to take to become registered in order to receive an NCAGE and a DUNS number, and then to register with SAM.gov. Do you have any other tips that you would like to go over for the registration process?
Yes. I just want to put on everyone's radar that the registration in these systems can be very time consuming. It's better to start early than to lose the opportunity entirely to apply for funding due to not being fully registered.
Right.
If you don't have a DUNS number, NCAGE code, an account on SAM.gov, as well as an account on Grants.gov, you won't be able to apply for the funding opportunity. We recommend that you start the registration process today if you can. Also, the applicants need to be consistent in completing these registration forms. For example, their legal business name and address must be precise and match exactly when entering into DUNS, NCAGE, and SAM websites. Lastly, if you encounter any technical issues registering in these systems, you will need to reach out to their help desks directly. The help desk would be able to assist promptly. If your organization is already registered in these systems, please make sure all of your accounts are current and still active. Some systems require an annual renewal, and some require you to renew it every 3 years. To be certain, there are quick guides available on these websites that can address the renewal date for each individual site.
Got it. And how long does the registration process generally take?
It may take up to 6 weeks to fully register in all of these systems.
Okay. And if you're just joining us now, my co-host today is Francis. We both work together in the grants management section here at the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad. We're here talking about applying for U.S. Embassy grants in our public affairs section. So Francis, are there any fees associated with registering?
There is no fee associated with registering. It's free. We have received a number of inquiries from potential applicants in the past that were asked to pay a fee to register in these systems. They are scams, so be aware. The US government does not ask you to pay for fees associated with applying for grants.
Free? That's great to know that some things are still free out there. And yes, folks, please do be careful that you're not being taken advantage of or scammed into paying any fees that are not required. Okay, so once you've successfully registered your organization, how does one look for these specific funding opportunities that they can apply to?
The applicants need to go to www.grants.gov to look for opportunities to apply for grants. There will be a search box at the top right corner of the website. The applicants can simply type in Pakistan in the search box in order to see the funding opportunities from Mission Pakistan.
Let's talk now about some frequently asked questions that we get regarding this topic. Ready?
Sure.
After applying, if your application is not successful, some organizations ask why their proposal was not selected. What can you tell us about this?
Sure. The U.S. Embassy has a fair, transparent, and competitive process in place to select the most suitable, qualified, and credible organizations for funding. Hundreds of nonprofits from across Pakistan and other countries apply for our funding opportunities. Each complete application is given careful attention before the final decision is made.
And if the organization is not chosen once 1 year, is it eligible for future funding opportunities?
Of course.
Okay.
We post all of our NOFOs, otherwise called Notice of Funding Opportunities, on an annual basis. The applicants can absolutely apply for future funding opportunities when they are available on Grants.gov.
Oh, that's great to know. Okay, thanks so much. So what about organizations who have already previously received government funding? Are those organizations then more competitive to receive more U.S. government funds?
Actually, they are not. Again, we have a fair and transparent process in place to select applicants for funding. Each application is reviewed by a panel of several U.S. officials who make recommendations as to why an application should be selected or not. It also depends each year on the competition. Never having applied or won an award before is neither positive nor negative in your selection process for applying for an award the following or future years.
Awesome. That's so great to know. If you're just joining us now, my colleague Francis and I are talking about the grants application process here in the U.S. Embassy Islamabad's Public Affairs section. If you have any questions, please do write us in our comments below, and we'll try to respond as best as possible. Let's now go to some of those questions we have received from our viewers. So the first question, go ahead.
All right. So the first question is from Zopash Khan. He's saying that trying to apply on Grants.gov but unable to get UEI, and I want to submit on behalf of organization application, so please guide how to make workspace and apply for grant. Okay, so Zopash, I think you're talking about two different systems. First, the UEI will be generated from Duns and Bradstreet website. In order to apply for a DUNS or UEI, which is a unique entity identifier number, you need to go to Duns and Bradstreet website and apply for a UEI. As far as this workspace is concerned on Grants.gov, you need to register on this different system by logging into www.grants.gov and creating an account for your organization. Once you create an account for your organization, you will then be able to create a workspace, and you should then be able to apply for our funding opportunities. I hope this answers your question, Zopash.
Great, thank you. Our next question is regarding any programming for teacher capacity building and infrastructure development for low-cost schools. Go ahead.
Sure. So Mohammed Kashif, unfortunately, the funding opportunities that our office offers is not for development projects. We basically work with students and teachers on English language programs, but unfortunately we do not offer programs for construction of our infrastructure or to build schools or colleges.
And one thing I'd like to add is we do have an office within our public affairs section called the Regional English Language Office. So we do have several opportunities for teacher capacity building, specifically for English teachers, as well as English students. So if that applies in this specific case, definitely review all of our awards available. If you search for Pakistan and you look up, and if it has the word RELO, R-E-L-O, it's possible that you could find an opportunity that would work well if there's an English language component.
All right. So we have another question from Abu Bakr. He's saying that he is facing problems regarding account renew on sam.gov. So Abu Bakr, what you can do is that you can directly reach out to the help desk on sam.gov and send them an email with a screenshot, or you can even call them and ask them to help you renew your account on sam.gov. They should be able to send you a reply with instructions. I hope you will find them helpful.
Great. Our next question is a very specific question of wanting to know how many NGOs in Pakistan receive grants or receive funding from the U.S. Embassy in 2022. It's difficult to tell because it's just the beginning of 2022. And that's a trick question because specifically we're only referring to the public affairs section. There are other sections within the embassy that also provide funding. For example, USAID, DRL, Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. There are other opportunities for funding. For public affairs, we can let you know that this year we have over 20 funding opportunities. It's a larger year than past years. And many of those opportunities have multiple projects within them, which means more than one organization can win. It's a little tricky when the question is how many NGOs of Pakistan, because it is not limited to just Pakistan. You are competing on a worldwide, global level. We hope and wish to partner with Pakistani NGOs, and some projects are specifically only requesting to work with local NGOs, but other projects are also open to work with U.S. institutions as well as other international organizations. So it's a little difficult to know at this time, but we can tell you that we have over 20 funding opportunities. Many of them have multiple funding opportunities within each individual project, and that we do hope to partner with local NGOs.
Right. And Elizabeth, I wanted to add that there are funding opportunities that are live on Grants.gov as of today.
Yes.
So our viewers can log into Grants.gov right now, and they can go to the search box and type in Pakistan to find out what opportunities we have already offered as of today, and there may be more that will be posted later this month.
There certainly will be more. We're about halfway as far as posting opportunities. That's why we're doing this session now, so that if you're not registered as of yet, you can become registered now so that you'll see the whole slew of opportunities that will be posted. They will be live for the months of January and February, so it's in your best interest to check them out now.
Right, so they will be open for 60 days, so our viewers will have plenty of time to register in these systems if they haven't already registered. So
Correct.
that's very good to know. Thank you. All right, so moving on to our questions, there is a question from Naveed Ali. Can we use it for getting education abroad? Do you want to take that one, Elizabeth?
Yeah, so this is kind of a trick question. Many of our opportunities that are not posted here do not necessarily incorporate all the additional exchange programs that we offer. It's run through a separate office, but we have one of the world's largest exchange programs within the State Department. Mission Pakistan does. So these particular programs that we're talking about today are more about NGOs partnering with us to incorporate our goals. However, some of those programs do incorporate a exchange component, whether it's for students to go to the United States, or an exchange of journalists, or an exchange of professionals of different capacities and backgrounds. It really depends. But these specific awards are not, for example, the Fulbright or our IVLP program. What we're really talking about are opportunities for local NGOs to then be able to partner with us and hopefully envelop those exchange components in the future.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. All right. There is a question from Ansar Server. Is there grants for building schools or colleges? I am developing an app like Khan Academy. I want to deploy in rural area schools where students have no quality education. Can I get a grant for that? So Ansar server, like I said earlier, answering one of the questions from our viewers earlier, the public affairs section in the U.S. Embassy does not offer grants on construction projects or for the infrastructure. Our programs are mainly on education, on English language, journalists training, climate change, environment, but we do not offer development projects where you can construct schools or colleges. So unfortunately, our funding opportunities won't be applicable to your needs.
There's a question, a really good one here. What are the chances, what's a better chance of getting an approval for a grant? Having a background in the field of either health or education. Thank you so much for the question, Sunaya Kiran. However, this is really a trick question because there is no specific background we're looking for in the person who's applying. It's more about the specialty of the NGO itself. We do currently have opportunities that will take care of both of those fields. We have several in the field of education, but we're also doing a lot in the field of environment this year, which has a lot of overlap in health as well, as we know that there's a direct impact on health through the environment. So please check out our funding opportunities that are directly involving climate change, environmentalism. I know that there's one out there that's even talking about glaciers and glacier research this year. So, and that you can correlate the direct impacts of health. So we have ones that are related to both education and health. But in general, I just want to talk about in general our ongoing priorities. Some of the themes that you might see throughout these applications has to do with women's rights, human rights, youth, education, journalism, training and empowerment, freedom of speech, peace building, community and social cohesion. And like I mentioned this year, we have some new objectives, including climate change and environmentalism. We also have a really cool new opportunity about LGBTQI rights. So really we're running the gamut of all the themes that we're touching as far as our mission goals and priorities. So please do check all those opportunities out.
Sure. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. All right, I see one more comment from Zopash Khan. He is saying that I have already registered on dab.com and already have done UEI, but on Grants.gov, I go on manage accounts there, they need UEI, and same I enter there, they say it's wrong, please comment. Okay, so Zopash, what you need to do is, once you have your DUNS number, what's going to happen this year basically is that the DUNS numbers will be replaced with UEI numbers. It's going to take place somewhere around April this year. So all of our potential applicants need to get their DUNS number renewed and in order to get a UEI. So what I'm trying to say is that as long as you have a DUNS number, use that to apply for our grants. But if the system does not accept the DUNS number, please apply for a UEI number. It should be quick and it should be straightforward. However, if you face any issues, please reach out to their help desk directly. Thank you.
Great. One question from Mohib Arif that I've touched on a little bit briefly is, do you have any funding opportunities for minorities? Absolutely. The vast majority of our NOFOs this year are touching on themes of building up and developing minority communities, whether it's women, whether it's the LGBTQI community, whether it's vulnerable youth, whether it's journalists who may be targeted for freedom of speech. There's multiple opportunities for people who work either according to their field, might be a minority, or perhaps for their identity and or their geographic location. So you'll have to read the NOFO application itself. It's very good reading. It's not light reading for sure. The applications are several pages long, so make sure you go in there and really read the bulk of what this application is trying to accomplish.
All right, and then there's a question on how much time does it take to prepare a grant proposal. It really depends how detailed your narrative proposal would be, but what we can suggest you all is to go through our notice of funding opportunity. It's a long document, like Elizabeth was mentioning earlier, and make sure to address each and every requirement that is listed in our announcement, and make sure to list them all in your grant proposal. There should be a budget, separate file for a budget. There is a requirement for monitoring and evaluation plan. Then there are several mandatory documents that you need to complete in order to submit your application to Grants.gov. So it may take between 3 or 4 weeks, but since our NOFOs are live for 60 days on Grants.gov, I think you will have ample time to prepare an application, a successful application.
I'm really glad, Francis, that you brought up the point of all the different components of the NOFO process. This is not a very straightforward, like, oh, this is our idea, this is what we want to accomplish. We have certain objectives that we hope that you will achieve. And as part of that, it does include a very comprehensive monitoring and evaluation plan. We need information on your organization. We need information on any prior projects you may have done. And if you're going to be awarding out as a sub-awarder or having a project partner, we need information on them as well. And you need time to be able to discuss with them how you're going to be implementing, perhaps if it's a nationwide program and you need experts on the ground in the field in those particular areas. So it's really important that you complete every section. Some people, for example, there's a security package component. They'll be like, oh, that's really small. I'm just like not going to check that box. But unfortunately, we are the ones that are conducting the technical review. So if you leave out any portion of the application, you will be automatically disqualified for not including it. So all the small components, make sure every cover page that we ask for, every package, every review, make sure and there's a checklist, so make sure you go through the checklist. But please, we don't want you to miss out on the opportunity just because you thought that one component you could either address later on once you're awarded. It is something that we want to make sure that we see with every single package before you go on to the next page, the next stage, which would be the review panel.
Yes.
There's a really good question here from one of our viewers, from Abid Hussein. Thank you so much for joining us today, Abid. He says, right now there's only 8 funding opportunities on Grants.gov. Where are the other 12? Elizabeth mentioned that there are 20 plus funding opportunities. You are correct, and your counting is excellent because I'm super aware that there's only 8 up there right now. It's actually our job to be posting them. The reason we're doing this kind of initial kickoff and sharing of this information is because we want folks to begin reviewing them. We're going to be updating and loading more or uploading more NOFOs on a daily, weekly basis. We have all of them drafted already, and several, especially this week, there will be more added this week, if not today, if possible. And definitely check back next week and the following week to see all of ours. But like I said, make sure once at the end, you can always write to us at pakistangrants@state.gov. If in a couple weeks you don't see 20, you can definitely write and say, listen to our Facebook Live, where are the others? But they'll be up there, we promise.
Sure. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. All right. And then we have a question from Rubab Sakina. Is there any funding opportunity on NCDs and mental health? Rubab, unfortunately, no. Like I said, and like Elizabeth has said earlier, our grants are mainly focused on climate change, environmentalism, English language, journalist training, and then higher education programs. These are the thematic areas that we offer each year. And unfortunately, we do not offer specific grant opportunities or funding opportunities for NCDs and mental health.
Mm-hmm. And to go along with that, a viewer asked, what are the most common types of grants? We have something that we put out called an annual program statement from one of our offices, and that's basically a blanket application asking for you to design a program that would meet our objectives, especially in the goals of peace building, social cohesion, religious tolerance, religious pluralism, bringing together a lot of different diverse communities and promoting peace that way. So that's one type of a grant. Another type, there's several different types actually. We talk about all the different themes as far as English language learning and things like this, but there's also two different separate types, right? There's the cooperative agreement, which is when you have a very close working relationship with us at the U.S. Embassy, which would mean, for example, if you're going to be hiring maybe students and teachers, that we might be part of that process, or we might be part of your curriculum review. And then there's the individual grant itself, which might be more, this is the idea, you wrote the application, you're running with the project, and you're going to be providing reports to us, and we're going to be communicating, but it's really going to be more of your NGO-led kind of concept. So I think it's really important that you check out the different types and make sure that you see what works best for your organization.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. All right. And then there is a comment from Noor Huma. All the opportunity pages are blocked. They are not all opening. Am I doing something wrong? So Noor Huma, I'm not sure what specific problem you are encountering, but as far as I can tell, I was on Grants.gov earlier today, and these funding opportunities were live to public, so you may want to refresh the page or try it later today to find out our funding opportunities. But we're not aware of any error that is being encountered by other entities.
Mm-hmm. Karan writes in and asks, do private organizations or sole proprietors, can they apply for grants? The answer to that is the vast majority, no. You must be a registered nonprofit entity. That could be, for example, even a public or private educational institution, because as long as that, if you're a private educational institution, for example, as long as you're also equally registered as a nonprofit, that would be okay. A lot of these organizations are civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations. However, there is a caveat. We do have one subsection of our public affairs section, and it is written in a way, you will see the eligibility and the requirements. The vast majority say, even if you are a private entity, you cannot apply. There is one group within our unit. There's one unit within our public affairs section, and they are able to partner with private organizations. So it's in your best interest to read the fine print. You can always write to us at pakistangrants@state.gov and let us know. You could say, this is my government status or my tax registration status. Am I eligible to apply? And we can help you determine whether you're eligible before you begin the entire process or not. Okay?
Yes. All right. So there is a question from Sunaya Kiran. She's saying the newly started NGOs has an equal chances of acceptance for grants if we comparison to the NGOs working for many years. Our time span of an NGO work will impact the acceptance of applicant.
So basically a baby new startup NGO versus a well-established long history NGO. What are the chances?
It doesn't matter, to be honest, Sanaya Khan, as long as you fulfill the requirements of our notice of funding opportunities, and as if your application is stronger, it doesn't matter if you are a new organization or you are an experienced organization. Like I said earlier, our officers or the panel review each application with its merits. So the stronger your technical proposal, the budget and M&E plan is, it doesn't matter if you're a new organization or an experienced one.
Great, awesome. So a couple of things, and then we're going to go into some additional possible questions and answers that we have prepared for you as like a fact section. Please do send in more questions for us. Write to us right now. We are here live and we will answer your questions. So I'll ask some more questions if that's okay with you, Francis?
Sure, Elizabeth.
So basically, in general, what is the objective of a grant?
So each award has a different goal objective that is tied to the U.S. mission to Pakistan goals.
Okay.
The notice of funding opportunity explicitly describes what the goal objective of the award would be. It should be listed under program description in the NOFO, so you should be able to find it in the notice of funding opportunity itself.
Great. And grants must be available for teachers training in Pakistan. We've already talked about that, right? Because there's thousands of poor students who are studying in colleges and universities here. So what are the opportunities there for them?
Sure. So, like you said earlier, Elizabeth, the Regional English Language Office, or RELO, does offer exchange programs to high school teachers and sometimes teachers as well, tertiary teachers as well.
Okay, great. So does the U.S. Embassy Pakistan have any grants for development or infrastructure? I know we talked about this before too.
Right. Unfortunately, the public affairs section do not offer development projects. We offer projects that are mainly non-development. For example, exchanges, cultural preservation, English language programs.
Environment.
Yes. Right. The Agency for International Development, or USAID, do offer in Pakistan on a larger scale. There are ongoing projects from USAID throughout Pakistan,
as well as additional agencies and our counterparts in the embassy. But today we're solely speaking about the public affairs section.
Correct.
So in which departments or fields do you provide grants for one person?
We rarely offer grants to individuals. Most of our opportunities are for organizations.
Great. And what about, do these grants also include startups? So if not, what are the options for them?
Yes, we do offer funding opportunities to startups through our entrepreneurship programs. Our viewers can go to Grants.gov to find out if there are any opportunities for startups this year.
And what type of grants specifically do we offer?
Public diplomacy grants, for example, educational exchanges, cultural preservation, journalist trainings, climate change, things like that.
Women's rights, LGBTQI.
Right.
We do have entrepreneurship as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities. We just want to give everyone one more opportunity. Are there any additional questions? We're here with you live. We're waiting for your questions. Please do put them in the comment box below. We would love to hear from you. And we are really looking forward to reading your applications. If you're just joining us now, my name's Elizabeth. This is Francis.
Hi.
We're from the Grants Management team here in the Public Affairs section of the U.S. Embassy in Islamabad. And today we're answering all your questions about the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or as we lovingly call it, the NOFO process, or the grants application process. We're here today to answer your questions. These opportunities are now live on Grants.gov, as many of our friends have already noticed. They're only partially up. We will have more than 20 funding opportunities this year. That is great news for local NGOs who are looking for partnership opportunities. So please do check out Grants.gov. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a little search box. You'll type in Pakistan, and then boom, all of the ones that are available from the mission will pop up for you.
Sure. We have also received a question from Mohammed Suhail. He says, playgrounds for children as ICE and other narcotics on the rise. Please utilize some grants for those also.
Okay, so I love that you're addressing this. We actually do have another section within the embassy that specifically addresses and works actually typically with the government in Pakistan to address narcotic issues. That agency or that office is called INL. So they do give out grants as well, and they do partner also with the local and federal government. We work more on the way of people-to-people connections, working through education, working through capacity building, journalism, more like training, job training, cultural exchange. That's the type of work that public diplomacy does. But it's not to say that we don't have ongoing programs and projects in other sections of the mission, such as our counterparts in INL who do work on narcotics issues. So thank you for raising that. That is a serious concern, and our colleagues in INL will be happy to hear you out on that. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Okay, there is a question from Hamid Rashid. Can for-profit companies can apply for 8 NOFOs which are currently live? Hamid, unfortunately, most of our notice of funding opportunities are open for non-profit organizations. But like Elizabeth was mentioning earlier, there may be 1 or 2 NOFO that may be posted later on that will be open for-profit organizations. We cannot promise it, but you have to go to the eligibility section of the NOFO, which I think is section C of the announcement. Go there and please check whether or not it's open for-profit companies like yours. Thank you.
Great. Syed asks a really interesting question: is if there's any possibility that an individual could partner with the embassy, but without any funding. That's a really unique question, and perhaps there's opportunities to partner with someone. It would really kind of depend on their skill set and what our needs would be as well. But in this particular circumstance, we are looking to be able to have a partnership that does involve funding. There is something called an in-kind donation, which is when an organization basically loves the idea of our partnership and they're able to contribute either their own staff time or staff equipment or supplies. And that's kind of like their way of, not receiving the funding and or giving their own contribution. But in these particular circumstances, we are really looking to have a financial partnership in which we are giving U.S. Dollars and U.S. tax dollars funding public diplomacy funding in exchange for these projects. Just so you know, to have an idea, these projects are pretty massive. They involve a lot of people. Our goal is to have a large impact in Pakistan to be able to accomplish our goals. And our goals involve, mutual understanding and building up a prosperous and peaceful Pakistan. And it's hard to do that, in all seriousness, without funding. And it's hard to create programs or to involve travel or conferences or education or even just to facilitate conversations without a little bit of support through that funding.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Okay, there is a question from Maz Ali. Is there any NOFO for conservation of public monuments?
Yes, we have an opportunity. It's usually called the Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation. At this time, we haven't posted any.
Yes.
But typically, those opportunities are less through Grants.gov, and it's more on an individual basis. There's a grants mechanism called a sole source, and usually we work with an institution that is known to us that approaches us with a particular project idea that is for cultural preservation, and we see the value in that. Typically, those competitions are run through Washington, D.C., and then we would receive the funding later in the year, and we would partner specifically with that one organization. So the answer to that question is yes, that is the type of work that we do. The particular projects, the 20 NOFOs that we're putting up this year, don't necessarily address that. But if you're interested, you can contact either the U.S. Embassy
Facebook page. They can go to their Facebook page.
Or the consulate's page, depending. I'm not sure if you're tuning in from Islamabad. If you are, you can contact Pakistan Grants at state.gov. We can help channel you to the right office. If you're coming in from a consulate, Lahore, Peshawar, or Karachi, feel free to reach out to the public affairs section from your consular district.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Okay, there is one more question from Syed Kamar. Is there any possibility to apply for a grant without funding for an individual?
We've already addressed that.
All right, we have already addressed it. Okay, so there is one more from Rushna Zubair. I am selected as UN Ambassador COVID Edition from Pakistan Youth Challenge with seed grant funding from UNDP Geneva. Now for sustainability of my project but lacks funding. So can I apply as individual? I'm 16 years old.
Rajna, I absolutely love your passion and your commitment to making a change. Congratulations on being a Youth Challenge UN Ambassador. I think it's super impressive. And I would say in the future, yes. What you need to do is actually partner with an NGO. So if you're committed to a cause, let's say it's women's rights, it's human rights, it's children's rights, it's education, whatever your particular cause is. So this one's on COVID, and we do have a couple NOFOs that will talk about COVID. They're not necessarily public health focused per se, but they do definitely incorporate some COVID education. What I would say is you need to partner with a local Pakistani NGO or one that perhaps you could work with or even volunteer with and help them apply for these grants.
Yeah.
Like my colleague was saying, it's a little bit difficult as an individual. We very rarely give out individual awards, and NOFOs that we're posting are for mostly registered NGOs. So as an individual and as a 16-year-old, you might not be eligible to apply, but I would recommend that you either volunteer your time as either through an internship or through whatever skill sets you have to offer them. Let them know about if there's an NGO out there that you care about. Let them know that, hey, I heard this Facebook Live, go to Grants.gov, check out Pakistan, see what type of funding opportunities there are. The funding opportunities are live. They're up for the next 60 days or so it's super important that they go and check them out. But we're super proud of you, Rashna, so keep up the really good work.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so there is a question from Ijaz Abbasi. So what's the procedure for applying for the grants? So Ijaz, I think we already covered this, but I'll repeat it for you one more time. In order to apply for a funding opportunity that we offer, the public affairs section offers, your organization must have a DUNS or UEI number, which is Unique Entity Identifier number. You also need to register in NCAGE. There is a website that will be shared with you after our presentation. And then you also need to register in SAM.gov. That's another system where your organization need to be registered. And then lastly, you need to go to www.grants.gov. Once you are on that page, you can search for funding opportunities from Mission Pakistan, and then you can apply through Grants.gov, and then your application will be submitted and will be reviewed by us.
Great. There's a question. First of all, please send in more questions. We want to make sure that we have limited time today, so we want to answer all your questions. If they're very specific to your personal situation, we'd rather you just email us at pakistangrants@state.gov. But if it's a general question about how this process works or what it's about or why we're talking today, please do feel free to put it in our Facebook chat live, comment below. We would love to hear from you. The next question is, are there any upcoming NOFOs on capacity building or startups? And yes, we have a couple that will be specifically around the theme of entrepreneurship and incubation centers and capacity training for people around the country. So it's very important that you stay tuned. Like I said, this is kind of like our kickoff of a campaign that it is NOFO season, and we are posting all of our opportunities live, so definitely be sure to check back. We have more than one opportunity on that. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, Shahnaz Khan is asking, is there any grant for transgender education and economic empowerment?
Yes, there is one particular NOFO this year that specifically talks about the human rights and empowerment for transgendered individuals, specifically raising awareness and education around LGBTQI rights. So that one is already posted.
It's already live.
Yeah,
yes,
it's
live
already
on
posted. So that's one of the 8 that's already out there. So check it out if that is your specialty or your passion or you're compassionate for LGBTQI or transgendered individuals. I definitely encourage you to check out that opportunity.
Great. All right. There's one more question from Ishtiyaq Khan. Can small CBOs, community-based organizations, apply without E&D registration? I think you mean EAD, Ishtiyaq. As long as your organization or your CBO is registered with the government of Pakistan and it has a legal right to work in Pakistan, your organization can apply for our funding opportunity. So yes, it's open for organizations like yours as well.
As long as they're legally registered, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the most important part. If you guys have any additional questions, please do send them our way. We are here with you live. We're here super excited to answer any of your questions. But if you don't have any further questions, we just want to give you a little bit more information. Once again, go to grants.gov, type in Pakistan to look for our opportunities. There will be over 20 this year, which is a lot for our mission. We're very excited about that. Know that there are people behind these ideas that have been working on these projects for months. So we also understand that there's a huge group of people on the other side that work to, number one, overcome all the technical challenges of all these registrations and getting every component done. But we do read what you submit. We do answer your questions if we are legally allowed to. And we can't answer specifically when folks write in like, oh, I wasn't selected, can you tell me why? We can't provide that type of advice because it wouldn't make our process transparent. But do know that there's a checklist, and you should definitely be very diligent and detailed oriented to make sure that you're completing every component that is required for the grants application. So that would be my piece of feedback. Make sure you do your homework, you do all the reading. If you're putting, I know that there's a team of you that are going to put in hours to write a beautiful proposal. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence and that you're putting in every component that is required.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And Maz Ali has commented back, how can I apply for a conservation fund? Is it the same kind of process? So Maz, please be on the lookout. We will advertise any funding opportunities that we'll be offering on our Facebook page or on our Twitter account. You can also go on our official website, U.S. Embassy's official website. There will be, if there is any funding opportunity that will become available, you can find that on our website and on our Facebook pages.
Great. Ansar asks, if an NGO will become registered now, will it be eligible? That depends, Ansar, if you're referring to the 4-step registration process for applying for our grants on DUNS, NCAGE, SAM.gov, and Grants.gov, or if you're referring to becoming a Pakistani registered NGO entity, which is completely out of our control. I would say that process likely would take more time if they're not officially registered NGO. So you would then be able to tell us if you're a registered NGO officially or not with your certificate by the time that the NOFO closes. If you haven't registered for any of the systems that you need to register to apply, then yes, there's definitely time to do so. It might take a couple weeks to make sure that you have all 4. Some of them you can complete in a day. I think the Grants.gov one you can do pretty simply.
Yes.
But make sure that you apply for NCAGE, DUNS, SAM.gov, and Grants.gov to make sure that you have all your bases covered. Then you will be thoroughly eligible to apply. And then as long as you're a registered NGO, and that could also be in the States. If you're tuning in from the States and you're a registered 501c3 NGO, you are also welcome to apply, as well as other countries' NGOs registered, as long as you have proof that you are a registered NGO entity.
Right.
Okay.
All right. There is one more question from Shakila Baloch. Being alumni, we can apply directly, or registered CBO is compulsory? So Shakila, like we discussed earlier, we do not offer grants to individuals. You must be associated with an organization in order to apply for our funding opportunities. So yes, being a CBO or a registered NGO in Pakistan is compulsory for our funding opportunities.
Great, and I think that was our last question for now. So we just want to say thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon and for your fantastic questions and involvement. It was great involvement. I'm sorry if we didn't get a chance to answer all of them, but we do hope that this conversation gave you a better understanding of the application process. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to email us at pakistangrants@state.gov. Thank you so much to each of you for your time, your questions, and enthusiasm in today's session. And a special thank you to my co-host, Francis.
Thank you for having me here today, Elizabeth. I just wanted to let people know that we are sending the link to the following resources below for you all to check out. Have a great evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us once again.